Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez, and this is episode 270. I am joined on this post-trade deadline podcast by my co-host, Prez, that is at _ Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how are you doing?
I haven't even caught up or internalized half the shit that happened outside of like the world of the Knicks. So there's a good chance during the course of this pod, I'm just gonna be like, huh? Who's on where? I'm gonna be like fucking the TNT NBA hosts who can't like do the bare minimum of research of who's on what team. That's gonna be me
Nice.
for the next like hour and change.
It's good stuff. Good to hear. Uh, I will try to help you out by sending you this link, which you can read. Uh, and it is now there in our private chat on this very webpage. But before we get started talking about all of that, I just make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram. You can check that out on Instagram. It is at thestrick.land. Please give us a follow. We are posting all kinds of new content on there. If you can give us a follow, that would obviously be a huge help. We also have a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. Furthermore, the Strickland has a Patreon. You can subscribe to that. There are a number of tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland This Pod that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag that comes out every other week, hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, aka the Doug Bag, alongside Dallas Amico. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strick and Roll, my solo pod, where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful weekly articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. That's going with a variety of additional benefits like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. Let's just start with the Knicks. The Knicks traded for Josh Hart. The trade is a little bit weird, but we do have some clarity finally on what exactly the Knicks will be trading out. The Knicks traded their own lotto protected first in this year's draft for Josh Hart. They also sent out Cam Reddish in the deal, along with Ryan Arcidiacono and Svi Mikhailuk, who will be sorely missed. The thing is, if the pick doesn't convey, so if the Knicks miss the playoffs, they will send 4 second rounders to Portland. Those are the 2024 Detroit second round pick, the less favorable of either the 2026 Minnesota second round pick or the 2026 New York second round pick, the 2027 Knicks, and then both of their second round picks, their second round pick in each year in 2027 and 2028. So those are the 4 picks that would be going out if they don't make the playoffs and they retain their first round pick this year. So look, I have been on the fucking mailbag thing that we did yesterday. I did the trade deadline thing, so I think people know where I stand on this pretty clearly. But Prez, the floor is yours. How do you feel about the Knicks acquiring Josh Hart for what they gave up?
Well, listeners probably already know, but in case you didn't know, before I get into the actual deal, people need to know that I've been dealing with DMs from Shwin for what feels like years. Just being like, how can we get Josh Hart to the Knicks? This is like Josh Hart exists in a very rare space. This rare, secret, alternate pocket universe is the overlap of Venn diagrams between Thomas Thibodeau's favorite players and Schwinny Pooh's favorite players. Population, Josh Hart. I'm trying to think if anybody else fits into this category.
Maybe like quickly. I mean, quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
I think quickly has entered that. I think we can say that. That's fair now. Tibbs definitely has grown to love him in his own way. Warts and all. Not warts for IQ, warts for Tibbs, to be clear. We don't believe IQ has any warts.
No warts.
No warts. He's wart free. So anyway, like in terms of Josh Hart, the player, I think he's a good fit. I mean, we talked a lot about the need for some offensive juice on the bench. A lot of that, I think, was in the context of um, a lack of staggering starters with the bench players and a lack of uh, utilizing the bench to their greatest strengths, namely Isaiah Hartenstein, and also just some of the bench players just not being particularly effective on offense, right? Like Deuce had a rough stretch. Obviously, Evan wasn't in the rotation because he couldn't even do offense, right? We know he gets cooked on defense. Lately, some of those guys have perked up. iHeart has perked up. Deuce has perked up. We'll see if it continues. That'd be cool if it did. But the bench. Josh Hart is not a creator in the traditional sense, but he does juice offenses. He's a high efficiency guy. His offenses are better with him because he passes, because he gets easy buckets like layups. He causes and finishes transition. He gets rebounds, which lead his rebounds lead to good offense because he can just take the ball and go. And so even though he's not a bucket generator like that, and not a particularly great shooter, he does bring some of that stuff on offense. And then the defense we've talked about ad nauseum. He's not the big wing archetype, but he somehow just plays like one because reasons. He's just kind of strong and dong and good. So he can fill that void in his own very special way, which is cool. So Josh Hart, and the connective passing is awesome. We don't have enough guys like that. So, I have no faith that Tom Thibodeau is really going to manage the minutes and stuff like that well, but in a vacuum, I think he's a fine fit, long term even. And on Twitter, I went on the record saying that like I didn't think he would cost a first round pick just because he is likely going to opt out, but and I'm kind of curious where you stand on this specific question, but like I guess it was my own naivete in a way that like teams know these things, right? And especially the team run by Leon Rose. Like you could trade for Josh Hart, and there's a good argument that it was always likely, even if it wasn't the Knicks, that whoever traded for Josh Hart had signals that Josh Hart would be open to staying with said team, provided they pay him a respectable sum of money. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure I understand.
So I guess the question is like, I was like, this dude isn't worth the first, because if you trade for him, he might bounce. But if you trade for him, you probably have signs that there's a decent chance he's staying.
I mean, I think he's going to stay. I don't think you make this trade unless they're keeping him. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
I know for us for sure, but I mean, like in these types of situations, I guess.
Yeah, you have to. If you trade a first round pick for a guy and you just let him walk after 3 months,
you don't see that often, right? Like this is
the last time I can remember it. Last one I can remember off the top of my head was, I think, Bogdanovich, right?
That?
No, Trent didn't do that. Trent stayed. No, it was Bogdanovich, I think, when he got traded to the Wizards from the Nets. Then I'm pretty sure he left right after that. And even Aflalo did that when he got traded to the Blazers, and then he left there and signed with the Knicks. But like, yeah, it doesn't happen.
Has anyone ever told you have like an encyclopedic transactional knowledge base for no fucking reason?
No, but I've heard that. Yes, yeah, I have a knowledge of things that are irrelevant.
There's so many times I'm on the pod, or we're just like in the Discord, which people should join because Twitter might break again at any moment. And you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time when Jose Calderon helped us duck beneath the apron or whatever, some blah blah blah. And I'm just like, bro, what the fuck, man? Like,
but yeah, I mean, to your point, look, I can remember all kinds of useless NBA tidbits, unfortunately. No, it's not. I think when you make any
Yeah.
type of trade like that, the expectation is you're keeping that player, which puts pressure on the front office and gives the player leverage. I mean, another example would be like when we traded Marcus Morris, it was assumed that he was going to stay with the Clippers. Obviously, he did.
Right. Right.
So yeah, like there's a pressure there. I don't know how much that stuff, like how much leverage it gives you or whatever, because we've seen examples of guys sign fair market deals after that versus
Sure.
massive overpays. So it's just case by case, I think. And in this case, I would suspect since Leon is his former agent, since he has the
Hmm.
same agent as Julius Randle, since he was a teammate of Julius Randle's in LA, since he was a teammate of Jalen Brunson's at Villanova, and that they're still really good friends. Um, Given all of those things, I feel pretty comfortable with the and he's CIA obviously. Given all of that, I think it would be very surprising if they don't have
Yeah. Yeah.
most of this. Like you can't agree to a deal in advance, but
And then with players like him, I think it's even easier because it's not, it's not like some blue chipper $30 million guy or whatever who's going to be like people want Josh Hart. Don't get me wrong, but like this motherfucker is not going to cause a bidding war. So, with our Stephen A. Smith voice, with all due respect to Josh Hart, yeah. So no, so like in retrospect, yeah, I think my projection was definitely off base, and given that kind of circumstantial practice that is pretty common, um, a first is a decent price. I do think this is my personal belief. I think that this first was worth more going out than it was worth more internally, precisely because I truly believe that like the Knicks would not play two rookies. And I also have the belief, which I think the Knicks share, that not every team shares, that if you don't, which this is very ironic what I'm about to say, given a lot of the complaints that we have, but like you shouldn't pick somebody if they won't get minutes. Um, and I mean literally like 0 minutes. Like Obi obviously needs to play more, has been screwed, but like he gets
he
some
plays.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's way below the amount that he needs. And some people think like, well, like they could develop and practice and you can send them to the G League and da 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 da. And I used to think that, but the more I kind of just that's just really rare to see guys who straight up don't play and then all of a sudden like become good later. And that's usually because if you're good, you'll play. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The exception is, of course, like a draft and stash, and of course, you could combine that pick with our other pick from Dallas and see how far up that gets you. I don't think it would get you that far up. Um, and then, of course, the other classes, the other argument is like throw all that shit out the window. This is a really deep draft class. You could have two bites at the apple, even if one doesn't play. Fuck it, just whatever. Who cares? Like our Cadiano type player would have taken up that spot anyway. So, that stuff is all reasonable, but I think the way the Knicks seem to handle drafting and developing, um, they're like, we need to use this pick. We need to use one of our two picks for improvement or for asset acquisition. And if you wait until after the deadline, that means you have to basically trade something on draft day when everybody knows like you have a countdown clock on your pick. And that always is kind of dicey. And, there's plenty of teams that make it work, but um, the certainty of getting a legit quality rotation player who's on the same timeline age wise as your team, like Josh Hart, and still having a crack at this draft, probably like is a pretty conservative, easy. I don't think this was like a controversial decision within the Knicks front office. It was probably pretty easy. I'm sure they would have preferred to send a protected pick from the future, and then use this pick for some other improvement. But um, if if I'm Portland, I'm like, wow, we got a really great asset for Josh Hart who is going to leave. Like this guy is good, but like we have a now like a extra pick in the 2023 draft. So like if I'm a Portland fan, I'm excited at that. Sad that Dame still doesn't run from the grind, and content going into the rest of this season, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, they did a lot
So
of
yeah,
other, they did a few other things too. So
yeah. So in a weird way, to me, it was pretty fair value. I do think there's like your view that it is a little bit of an overpay. Like I totally get that. I don't think that's really wrong either. So all in all, like cool. I mean, we got a rotation piece. He gives us some flexibility moving forward. He gives us. He's really versatile, which is aside from quickly we have players who could be used in more versatile ways. Quickly is the only one who is used that way. And I think Josh Hart has enough cachet already that he will be used in a versatile fashion. He won't be like corner closeout guy like Quentin Grimes or corner tall guy like Obi Toppin or something stupid like that. They'll probably let him do a little bit of everything. So I don't know. I'm pretty hyped. I thought we were gonna come out with like Eric. I thought we were gonna get OG straight up just because I didn't think Masai was gonna get greedy, but that's what he does. So whatever. Less we say about that, the better. And then I thought if we didn't get him, we'd get someone who's more of a scorer like Eric Gordon. But if you were to just tier up the kinds of players this front office wants, Eric Gordon helps you now, but he's also old. So Josh Hart was probably a little more desirable for them on the whole. So those are my thoughts.
um, yeah, Josh Hart is 27. He turned 27 when he turned 27 on March. So he's going to turn 28 this year. So you would sign him, let's say, for a 3-year deal. So you get age 28, 29, 30, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. What, like, yeah, I do think it was a little bit of an overpay. That said, you look at a lot of the deals that went out today, the guys that got traded. I like Hart more than Sadiq Bey.
Yeah,
I like Hart more than Thibault. I like Hart more than Reddish, who we
Josh
traded.
Josh Richardson.
Yeah, I like Hart more than Richardson. I like Hart more than Kevin Knox. Shout out Kevin Knox for grinding out, and he still got he deserves his place in the league based on how he's played this year. So kudos to him. I like him more than basically any of these guys that got traded today. Beverly, who's going to get bought out. I like him more than Eric Gordon, who Eric Gordon I do like, actually. I think he's a pretty solid guy. But yeah, for the reasons you mentioned, I prefer Hart. So you look at all that.
Gordon's the
Obviously,
only like real two-way guy. You have like Bones, but Bones doesn't play defense. You have Tybo.
I
Tybo
didn't want
doesn't play
Bones.
offense.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Like
I didn't want Bones. I think Bones is there's a few things at play here. Like Bones is a guy. Look, we already. This is what you can do as an organization, right? When you fuck up, you should learn from your fuck ups, right? So you fucked up trading for Cam Reddish because you thought, hey, it hasn't worked out for him in Atlanta. We like the tools. Maybe you ignore some intel or stuff about what he thinks his role should be, what he wants to be, blah 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 blah. Because you're like, you know what, he's going to come to New York and he's going to love it because it's New York and he's going to be around his buddy RJ Barrett and he played in the McDonald's All American game with Emmanuel Quickly and Quentin Grimes. Like, this is going to be great. He comes here, you ignore the fact that your coach didn't really want him at all, and quite frankly, the fact that he's not anything. There's nothing about him that's very like Tibbsy, nor is there anything about him that's kind of in line with how they've drafted. Right? They've drafted guys who have been productive in college and had, in most of their cases, other than Keels, had played multiple years in college. Right? You took a guy who was a one and done, super ballyhooed prospect that had kind of been dining out on that college and really that AAU high school
mhm.
glory for years. Okay, and you ignored the part that your coach probably didn't really want him, and I think that's okay to do because I really like. Again, this is the part of it that I think is just stupid on Tibbs' part. It's like nobody needs to tell you that they want to see him play, bro. Like they traded a protected first round pick for him. They obviously would like to see him play. Um, okay, but it didn't work out, and we don't need to rehash and relive why it didn't work out, whose fault it is. I'm pretty sure everybody in some part is to blame. Leon, Tibbs, Cam himself, Clutch, whatever. All these people are to blame. All of them have their hand in it. And then you got to learn from that, right? And it seems, at least to some degree, they may have learned from that in the sense that, okay, instead of playing out the string, they pulled him from the rotation, right? And did that nuke his value? Maybe. I don't really know how much that nuked the player's value because we've seen players get pulled from the rotation and they're okay. Uh, I think Cam nuked his own value in that sense. But anyway, um, okay, so they pull him from the rotation. They commit to whatever guys they want to play, right? Since that point, they're 20-13. They're on that's a 49.7 win pace, which is pretty fucking good. These are good decisions. Okay, now you got to trade Cam Reddish. Great. What do you want to trade him for? You want to trade him for a guy. Their stated goal was we want to upgrade in the rotation, right? They want to improve the team. They want to be a better team. Okay, so you get a guy who you know your coaching staff, especially Tibbs, loves. We know this. We know that Hart has publicly said very positive things about Tibbs. So okay, that's a great start right there. You bring in a guy who has been like a strong locker room guy throughout his career, going back to college. Bring in a guy who obviously has connections to key players on your team in both Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, who he was teammates with in LA. I don't know if they were good buddies or anything, but he did play with Julius. Um, Obviously, there's the CAA angle and all this stuff. But this to me looks like a team that actually learned, and you can disagree with the price they paid. I do think it was a bit of an overpay. I don't have a problem so much with them overpaying to get him, but I do think it was a bit of an overpay. Um, but even if you disagree with that, I don't think you can deny that there is signs here that they learned from the Cam Reddish mistake. And they did so without compromising the things they're looking for. And I want to say this too, going back to Cam, the biggest reason the Cam thing was like such a departure for them is they've placed such an emphasis to a degree on like positive analytics for players, especially considering the asset, the I guess the way it was perceived at that time anyway, that they gave up to get him. Like they've only drafted guys with baseline levels of production at at whatever level they were at before that. And with Cam, like the analytics have always hated Cam. In college, they didn't like Cam. In the NBA, they didn't like Cam. They didn't like him with the Hawks. Like it was such a departure. Whereas I'm not saying Josh Hart is some like, you know, analytics darling, but he's like a upper quartile, upper quarter of the league for wings in terms of EPM, you know? Like he's got good, just good data on him. And that's not like this year he was one of Portland's strongest on-off guys. That hasn't always been the case in his career. He's also had a weird career. Like he's bounced around into weird situations, right? That Lakers team he was on, which we've talked about before, was a weird ass fucking team. That was the one that Julius was on. Then he goes to the Pelicans, which is like another team where he's kind of like it's a weird situation because they draft Zion and then Zion doesn't play a bunch. It's all fucked up. Then he goes to Portland. Portland's another weird situation because it's like the first time, like when he gets traded there, they're just like tanking away, right? So who the fuck knows what's going on here? And then obviously this year they're trying to be good, but it's just a weird spot. But like the point is that he's been in weird situations. He's not the most positive net rating guy ever. He really just has a slight positive for his career, plus 1.1. His on court for his career is minus 1.1. This is a kind of a neutralish guy. But I think if you watch him and you've watched him enough, like the specific micro skills he brings to the table are just very appealing for this team for a couple of reasons, being that, one, his defensive rebounding is massive. Like he's a great, this is not an understatement. Like when Tibbs said I think Tibbs said he's the best rebounding guard in the league. It's funny that people call him a guard because he is guard sized, but if you just watch him play, that dude plays like, he plays like a fucking,
And he gets
yeah, like,
wing like assignments,
yeah,
argue like just as much as he does defend point guards and stuff like that. So yeah, even if you like if you categorize him as a guard, he's unquestionably the best rebounding guard Unless you include like Luca, maybe I don't know as a guard.
No, that he's a better rebounder. He gets contested rebounds. Luca does not get contested rebounds.
Yeah, Luca's the designated rebound guy, so he
Yeah.
just
Luca
gets
gets
Prez
the
his fucking fantasy triple doubles all the time. So get better, Luca. We need you down the stretch.
yeah, same. My team is suffering. I have him, I have KD, I have Zion.
Oh, shit.
I was second in the league, and now I'm just like, I can't drop any of those guys. So just like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna get my ass handed to me for a few weeks. All right, nobody cares about this, but like, he's a great defensive rebounder. He is a really good offensive rebounder too for a guard. He's just very good at these things. Weirdly, he is a very good secondary playmaker, which is massive. Like he's a quick decision maker, connector, however you want to put it. He's good at those things, and God knows the Knicks benefit from that. We've seen it with Quentin Grimes, right? Quentin Grimes goes in that starting lineup, and all of a sudden, that starting lineup is no longer a total embarrassment.
And we
So,
see it when Deuce plays aggressively
yeah,
because he has that connective passing, but you need to be just like you see with Grimes driving and with Hart driving, like you need to have some level of proficiency and being a threat. And
yeah,
Hart just gives you a wing who can do that.
yeah. And the other piece is he is a sturdy, capable defender. And the biggest thing for me, and I think this can't be understated. I think it has not been talked about enough. Like one of the reasons when I liked when they when they traded for Derrick Rose back in 2021 was, or 2020, I guess, whatever that season, was I thought what he could do could help bring Obi more into the mix. And we
Mm.
did see that that year, that like he did help Obi, and he helped Quick too that year, because it was
Yeah,
hard.
absolutely.
It was hard to just be like, "Hey, Quick, we know you're a rookie, but come in and just run point with like the bench and just do that." And quickly, he was a developing point guard then, so he's like, look, he's like, again, like Brunson, like these guys hunt for their shots, but he doesn't have that. He didn't have that understanding. Anyway, the point is, I thought Rose helped both of those guys. I think Hart can really help Obi, and I think Hart can really help RJ, because this is a guy who will grab a defensive rebound and get going. He will just
Yes.
fly up the floor. And I know Quickly does that when he gets rebounds, but there is like a physicality and a violent nature to the way that Hart does it that is very different from really any, like the combination of speed and
Quick doesn't
physicality.
really go like coast to coast like that too. He'll like get into the sets
Yeah.
quickly, and he when he really juices transition, it's via the pass, right? But he's
Yeah.
not like like Julius and RJ earlier in the season would actually go coast to coast. We don't have anybody who does that now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we really want to encourage Julius to do that too much. Um, but like, there's there's like a violence to the way he does that, a physicality and attitude, however you want to put it. But like, he is a locomotive. He's going to get going, and that is going to help those guys, because I do think Obi in particular has suffered from the what seems like a schematic to a degree lack of pace we've played with this year. And I think it's hurt RJ at times too, especially in the starting lineup. Like those guys just don't play fast, and it is what it is. Like Brunson, Randall, these guys are not, and they probably shouldn't be running up and down the floor, playing like Mike D'Antoni's teams or something. But
Hmm.
there is value to having a guy like Hart who's going to get that second unit going. And I do think that second unit has struggled at times with pace. I mean, we see it a lot with Deuce, because for whatever stupid reason, we have to have like Deuce bring the ball up to do the initiating, but his initiating is just like throwing a swing pass to Quickly or to RJ, and then they do the actual like offense. Um, Hart will do his own thing. He will get the ball and he'll fly up the floor. He might take it all the way for a layup. He's great at that. But like the point is, he can bring something there, inject some pace into this team. And we've seen it, right? This team, like at times, they can just fall into these very lethargic, methodical, boring stretches of play. I mean, the entire first half of the Magic game is one of the most brutal watches I've had in a while. Obviously, happy they came back and won. Hart can help with that. He can really, really help with that. I think he's going to be a fun pairing with Quickly. I'm okay with Deuce going back to being situational, because somebody will get hurt and Deuce will step in, and that's fine. Like if that's his role for right now, that's fine. Um, and I think like that bench unit where so it'll be Quick and Hart, RJ, Obi, and Hartenstein. Like that. That's a good ass bench and a
Yeah,
bench
man.
unit anyway. And the other part I like is like now you traded away a guy who is never going to play again for the Knicks, and two guys who effectively may as well have never played for the Knicks, for a player who immediately comes into your rotation, moves Deuce out. So now you have a really what I think is a more formidable 9-man rotation. Even though like the on-off stuff with Deuce is great, I think it's pretty obvious that like there were real stretches this year where he was detrimental given his lack of offensive capability.
I wouldn't be. I totally agree with everything you said. I wouldn't be surprised if they play with a 10-man rotation for a little bit, just because he's been hooping in a very Tibbsian way. Um, but he's certainly not gonna. Um, Obviously, Hart will be higher in
Yeah,
the pecking order there.
yeah, and ultimately like it gives you a solid 9-man group. And now I like the
Mhm.
fact that you've got Evan and you've got Deuce and you've got Obi or not Obi, sorry, Obi kind of, but and Sims, and now these guys are situational because Mitchell will be back presumably after the All-Star break. Like I
That's
like
right. I kind of
that,
forgot about
yeah.
Mitch.
So that gives you like actual depth. Like it gives you a solid 9-man group and then three guys who are situational because they actually should be situational right now. Like I like
Right.
Deuce. I believe in Deuce long term. Like if
On
the
a
shot,
very good team, those guys are situational.
yeah. And ultimately, like I think if Deuce hits shots, it's very simple, right? If Deuce hits shots, he is more than just a situational guy. He's a rotation player. If he doesn't hit shots consistently, this is what he is, a situational player. So I have no
Yeah.
problem with this. I think that's a good trade. And I'm excited to watch this team. I think this is going to be a fun team. And I think that Hart adds to the fun. And he's a good vibes guy. He's a really good vibes guy. I can't stress that enough. That was my main concern with this trade deadline and why I didn't want to trade Obi because Obi might not play a lot, but like everybody on the team seems to love Obi. And considering how shitty he's been treated at times, just in terms of his minutes, he's his positive
And
attitude.
his head coach speaking through
Yeah,
mouthpieces online and disrespectfully just shitting on not only Obi but other members of the front office. I have a heart question for you. So last year things were weird in Portland with Dame hurt. I didn't
25
want to.
usage.
Yeah, what the fuck happened? What was that? Like I didn't I saw that and like observed it for fantasy hoop purposes. I even picked him up a couple times. He was like scoring.
Yeah, I mean, he had some monster games over there. I'm just pulling
What
up his
was
game.
that? It wasn't just like 3-point shooting, right? Like
No, I mean, he's always, I mean, his slashing is crazy. But he did have some monster. I mean, he had a game against Washington last year.
he had like
15,
40 or
yeah,
something.
he had 15 of 21 from the field, 6 of 9 from three, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 44 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals. Yeah, he had some really bizarre. Like he had a stretch right after they got him. He dropped 23 on us at the Garden. He had 27 against Milwaukee, 22 against Memphis. Like he put together some interesting games, and then they shut him down because they were like, "Bro, you're no, like you're not fucking up this tank. You're not fucking up this tank." So like he is, but you know what's cool about him is he did all that and he didn't come into the season being like, "All right, I got to get my shots up." Like, look at his usage again. Now his usage is back down to like 12. I think it might be a career low this year. Yeah, he's on career low usage, 12.7. He's gonna fit right into the tip scheme. It'll be perfect. But like, I mean, this is what you want to see. He's a guy that look, yeah, he had this massive usage one year, and then he was just like, "Okay, I'm good. Like, I'm this is not who I am really, so we're fine." Um, I'm pretty excited for this. I like Hart a lot. I've always liked Hart, as Prez has attested to, and I think the 3-point shooting thing is probably just a weird, maybe just like a. I don't know if Tibbs is the right guy to get him out of it, but it does feel like one of those weird moments in somebody's career where they maybe lose confidence in their 3-point shooting for whatever reason. Because it's not just the
This is a
percentage.
Johnny Bryant. This is a Johnny Bryant mission.
Yeah, because this isn't just the percentage. The percentage is whatever. If it was just the percentage, I think you would just be like weird shooting season, right? Uh,
He passes up threes.
yeah, I mean it's not just that. His 3-point attempt rate this year it's 3.2 3-point attempts per 100 possessions.
Yeah,
For
that's
his
crazy.
career, he was a 6.6 guy per 100
He was
possessions.
up
That's
up pretty high for a minute there, like 8 or
he was
9, if
nine
I'm not
point he
mistaken.
was
Yeah,
9.3 in New Orleans his third year in the NBA. I think that's probably skewed a little bit because I think he kind of had to shoot a lot of threes there, given they
that was
had
Gentry ball.
they had Zion and Ingram, and you have to spread the floor for them. So I think that's a little bit of an outlier, but like
I
he's
do
like a
expect it to go up.
yeah, he's like a 6'7". Other than that, at around 6 or 7 per 100 possessions, that's where he needs to be. He doesn't need to be a huge volume guy. He just needs to be a little bit more. But the slashing is great. I mean, look, the guy is one of the elite. I mean, he's an elite finisher in and around the rim, given his size. He shot. This is per Basketball Reference. He's taking 45.5% of his shots this year at the rim, 0 to 3 feet, 71.5%. He's also shooting 43.8% from 3 to 10 feet on 13.2% of his shots. Just got to get the 3 point rate up, and he's got to just connect on a little bit more. That's it. But again, I can't stress enough. I'm very excited to see him play. I'm excited to see what this looks like for this team. And I'm just excited to watch this team. Like this version of this team,
It's a
I am excited
fun
to watch it.
group.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at with that. All right. I think Josh Hart stuff, we're good. Let's talk a little bit about Obi before we move on to general NBA things. I'm fine with them keeping Obi. I'm actually happy they kept Obi. And I know that, I talked to Jeremy about this on Strickland Roll, but like his argument was like, it'd be good to reset if you can get a first round pick maybe, or you can, maybe you get a player like Duarte. And I think the Duarte thing, even if that was a possibility, once we got Hart, that didn't make any sense.
Yep.
And like there's arguments for it. Like, hey, if you want Obi to succeed and you want to, as a Knicks fan, you want this organization to trade a guy at his, best value at this point, they should do it now. And I get all that, but like I look at this team and I'm like, I just refuse to have how Tibbs runs a roster influence what I think is best for the team. And at the end of the day, like if you traded Obi, you needed to get back a 4. What 4 were you going to get? Because if you don't get a 4, if Randall, I mean, look, I know he's been Iron Man, but all it takes is one injury. And all of a sudden, okay, Randall's gone. Who the fuck do you have at the 4? You're going to go back to Jericho Sims playing the 4 next to like Mitch or fucking Hartenstein? No, that'd be terrible. It's awful. So I'm fine with them keeping Obi, and I think I'm bullish, a little bit bullish anyway, on how Hart can maybe get us playing in a way that's more conducive to getting more out of Obi in whatever minutes he does play.
The other thing I'll say about Obi, I mean, it was heartening and interesting to hear that, we heard first from Begley, I think, that the Knicks were looking for, I forget the
Significant.
term. Yeah, significant draft compensation, whatever that means for Obi. And we talked about, you know, the, you mentioned defining traits of how this front office operates. There's a couple of things, two of them that this highlights that we know to be true. One is they don't really trade low. They didn't even, like, I can't stress this enough. Like, they literally didn't even trade low on Cam Reddish. They were like, if we move this fucking guy, we are waiting. They could have pulled the trigger on him to LA earlier. They had other offers on the table, and they were like, we're combining him with, a pick that we feel like there's decent reason to move sooner rather than later, and creating a real asset out of that. So, like, is Cam's value at a low? Yes, but they didn't. This wasn't like they could have easily just sold him for. Look at all the fucking second round pick deals. They could have sold him for the rights to a fucking random foreign player nobody knows or something like that. And they didn't. And that's why I kept telling people, like, I don't care how much Tibbs hates this guy. This is just not how this front office operates. And the other thing that I think we know to be true, and this makes their relationship with Tibbs all the more, I'll say, interesting. You could say perplexing and frustrating, but they're pretty good at identifying talent. And the Cam Reddish thing was a kind of, like you outlined before, that was a mistake. And if you look outside of that, they do a good job, and it's not just in the draft; it's in free agency, and they do a good job of identifying and evaluating talent even in weird context. That's the real key thing. Like the Rose deal was a perfect example of that. People thought he was cooked. I thought he was cooked. He was not putting up good numbers in Detroit at all. But the player was there. They have a pro scout. That's Zanuck, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Justin Zanuck is the pro guy.
Yeah, Justin Zanuck. He, when we got him, like we read
Or it
a
might not
lot
be
about it.
Justin Zanuck. It's some Zanuck, whatever. Doesn't matter.
I forget which Zanuck is which. I know there's two Zanucks.
Because I think Justin Zanuck is the Utah guy. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's some Zanuck.
One of
Zanuck
the
something.
Zanucks.
Yeah.
Shout out one of the Zanucks. The other Zanuck, you're on Utah, so fuck you.
Yeah.
But like again, this is a strength. It's not. We talk about their scouting and Walt Perrin, and that's obviously a strength. But so is their pro personnel evaluation. We see it with Rose. We see it in the scouting with Grimes and Quickly and Sims and these guys all being rotation quality players, despite being picked perceived as reaches or non-draftable or whatever. You see it with Alec Burks. Fournier is the one who he just kind of fell off a cliff. I don't really. I mean, if you told me like, oh, that was a miss, like, sure, I'll give that to you. Whatever. I don't really agree, but whatever. Fine. Fournier's whack now, so it's a miss. Cool. My point is, they are generally know that guys can do stuff, and then what happens is they'll sign guys who can do A, B, C, D, E, F. Tibbs will be like, okay, that's cool. I need them to do A, B, C. D, E, F are cool, but that's
I
not.
don't care. Yeah.
I don't. You're right. I just don't care. Like that's good that you think that, but that's not what's going to happen on my team here. So it works because those guys are so talented that they could do ABC.
Can I need to say this. Ben Simmons is coming off the bench for the Nets right now, which is
Wait,
this
what?
guy. Ben Simmons is coming off the bench. He's not even starting
Why?
because he fucking sucks. Anyway, go ahead.
Wait, time out. What's the starting lineup?
It was Dinwiddie, DFS, Royce O'Neal, Cam, and it looked like Dayron Sharp was starting, but I think maybe Claxton's hurt or something. But Claxton obviously would be the starter. Other than that,
What a weird team, man. It's just
it's just a bunch of guys that can play defense and not dribble. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
they're gonna need Aussie Patty to make an appearance here,
Good
but
luck.
he might not be walking through those doors.
Yeah,
um, what was I saying?
DEF guys do DEF, and Tibbs doesn't care
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. Tip doesn't care about that. So with Obi, he's a prime example of that. But Obi's the most glaring example of that because we have him sit in the corner and do nothing. But I actually think it's I was thinking about this a lot when we played Philly because everybody's like, okay, James Harden, whatever, Joel Embiid, obviously very extremely great MVP caliber player. Tyrese Maxey is Tyrese Maxey, but like D'Anthony Melton, a favorite of ours, like Doc Rivers was letting him like go coast to coast and pull like transition threes
Mhm.
where he's the ball handler and create off the dribble and run pick and rolls and stuff. And it wasn't just in the all bench lineups, but even even when we have got role players in the all bench lineups, they have the same role. Like there's been a couple of instances lately that have been pretty interesting to see Deuce and Grimes like for what I don't know if it was Tibbs or if their own calling their own number, but like they've been in other places on the court than when they normally are doing other things that they don't normally do. But for the most part, you see role players. The only time you see role players on a Tibbs team do different stuff is when there's like 2 seconds on the shot clock or 3 seconds on the shot clock, and they happen to have the ball. That's it. So I don't know. I think Hart will fit in, even though he can do 10 different things. He'll be able to do the three things that Tibbs wants. What's more interest? Well, 2 points. So number one with Obi, I'm glad that the front office is like, no, he can do all these things, and I know you only want him to do the one thing, but this is where we draw the line. Sorry, I'm very curious who Tibbs wanted them to go after because it was clear from Berman's tweet that Tibbs not only isn't a fan of Obi, but like wanted them to move Obi in some deal. And I think, like, to be frank, like I don't know what Obi's future is in New York. He's definitely still going to be on the block this summer, but I think with a lot of these guys, they're looking at their skill sets, and Tibbs is great, but I don't think he's going to be the next coach after this contract is up. I think he's probably too good to be canned unless he has some horrific playoff flameout or something like that. But like the way going back to the timetables and how old these guys are, like if a new coach does come in at some point in the next 2 years, there's a lot here to work with. There's a fucking lot, even without them pulling the trigger on a superstar deal. And I think they know that with Obi, and they were like, no, we're not selling low on you. We're not selling low on this guy just because our coach is throwing a shit fit. And yeah,
And my thing with that too is it's just like I don't care. Like, let's be real. At the end of the day, player talent is way more important than fucking coaches. It is. I don't care how good
yeah.
the coach you are. The talent of your players matters way more. If you're in the front office and you believe in a player's talent, you drafted this guy 8th overall. You've seen him improve on things he needed to improve at. Is he perfect? No. Is he going to be a future star? I don't think so. But you think he can be a solid NBA player, a good player that isn't getting an opportunity? You shouldn't be like, well, we got to trade him because our coach is an asshole. No, that's just stupid. Like, player talent is more important than coaching talent. And this is not a coach who has some fucking like legendary resume of success. Okay. Yeah, he's won a lot of regular season games. Cool. He's also been a fucking disaster in the playoffs, like since basically 2013-14.
When he doesn't have an MVP, he's astoundingly mediocre. He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
This isn't like he's
he's
not the worst coach in the NBA. He is. I mean,
he's one of the worst coaches.
Prior to the last 3 games, he's probably been the worst in-game coach in the NBA. But he has been better the last 3 games for what it's worth. But like, is there a risk that the next guy you would hire if you fired him sucks? Yeah, of course. There's definitely that risk. But is there a chance that you could hire a better coach or
this is my thing though, like,
so it's just like I don't really get the downside of
that argument is such bullshit to me. It's bullshit because how many new hire coach, like the level of coaching talent in the NBA and adjacent to NBA head coaching, so assistants and associates and all of that, people who are in the pool for coaching is absolutely incredible right now. It's through the roof. And how many head coaching hires have actually backfired? There's Bjorkgren. Who else in the last couple of years? I'm sure. I mean, Nash, I guess. Although he's kind of his own weird thing, but like
it's just it also just like it doesn't really matter to me because if you're telling me I have to pick between a rotation player potentially or an average-ish NBA coach, I'm just gonna take the talent. I'm always gonna take the player talent because you have to be a real difference. Like you can even convince me Tibbs is a good coach. You can convince me that. You can never convince me Tibbs is an elevating coach. He's not pushing the talent to a level it doesn't deserve to be at. I'm sure the people that wanted to believe this team was awful last year and had no talent and we couldn't hold leads because of XYZ reasons and we're making the same fucking excuses to start this year even though we got him a point guard. I'm sure they would love to believe that the talent on this team is very mediocre and not that good and Tibbs is doing yeoman's work just to get us to where we are. That's not the case. At least that's not how I interpret it. If you would disagree with that interpretation, that's fine. You're welcome to. I don't. I've been saying since last year, I think the talent on this team is really good. I've been saying since this year, since they made the rotation changes, hey, are we sure this team isn't actually really fucking good? And by really fucking good, I mean not quite a contender, but like I said, they're on a near 50-win pace since they made the rotation changes.
A contender is not walking over them.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this team has talent. So like I'm very okay picking the talent on this team over siding with the coach. And that's not just an Obi thing. That could be with Quick. That could be with Grimes. That could be with Hart now. That could be with Brunson, Randall, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Especially now that Randall is playing at the level he's at. Like the talent on this roster is pretty fucking good, and it's not some amazing achievement to have them at 30 and 26. I'm sorry, it's not. It's good.
It's not. It's not.
I'm happy. I'm happy they're there. And I'll be completely honest. One of the reasons I was really worried about them not hitting this type of level, there's two reasons. One, I didn't expect Julius to play this level, so hold my hand up. Completely wrong on that. Second one is that I didn't think Tibbs would make the changes to the rotation that I thought he should make. And he's done a lot of that. I don't give him credit for that in the sense of like he gets credit for doing it. I don't think he was inspired by himself to do it. Let's just leave it at that. So, like, again, do I think Obi's going to be some superstar player? No. But if you're telling me the reason I have to trade Obi is because Tibbs won't play him, I'm doing exactly what the front office did. Like, if they got a good offer, I'm sure they would have taken it. But they probably didn't. And you want to know why they couldn't? Because Tibbs doesn't fucking play the guy. So, like, this is what it is. There's no upside to the shit that Tibbs wants to put out there through Berman. And honestly, if you want to dispute that he does this, puts it out there through Berman, I don't really care to argue about it. I think it's very obvious. If you don't, cool. All right. I'm just going to leave that there. I think Obi's a good player. I want him to be on this team. I'm happy he's still on this team. I think he deserves more minutes. I'm hopeful that maybe somebody in the front office will have the conversation with Tibbs that they should have had much earlier, going back to last year and definitely earlier this season. And OB gets around 18, 20 minutes a game for the rest of the season. That would be wonderful. That would be enough. Okay. Let's move on to other teams because there is a team in Brooklyn who made a trade. Yes, they traded Jay Crowder. No, we don't care about the Jay Crowder trade here. Cool trade. Good job.
I've been so busy that, like, obviously I woke up, saw the KD thing. I didn't even realize. When was Crowder, yesterday or today?
That was today.
Oh, that's why I didn't.
Okay. Yeah, so that trade was Milwaukee gets Jay Crowder. Brooklyn got 3 second-round picks. Pacers got George Hill, Serge Ibaka, Jordan, and Wara, and 2 future second-round picks. They're supposedly going to waive Ibaka. So I could see Ibaka. The Knicks have 2 open roster spots, by the way. I could see Ibaka maybe being one of those pickups, but we'll see. No, we're talking about obviously the big enchilada, the trade of all trades, maybe the biggest. This might be the biggest deadline trade ever. I don't know. So the Nets the Nets got McCall Bridges, Cameron Johnson, your son, Jay Crowder, 4 unprotected first-round picks, 2023, 2025, 2027, 2029, and a 2028 first-round pick swap. Phoenix receives Kevin Durant. And the part that this was really confusing to me. I don't know if they needed to add a little bit of somebody to make the money work, but they threw in TJ Warren into this deal too, which it's just good for the Phoenix because TJ Warren can still get buckets when he's healthy, and he's been healthier this year. So
they were like, "No, you're a wing who can dribble. Away with you."
Yeah, and I just saw Chris Haynes was talking about this. It sounds like they had an agreement with KD before the start of the year where if things went sideways, they would honor his trade request, and I think they would honor the fact that he wanted to go to Phoenix above all teams. So I'm not sure that this trade was like a super aggressive negotiation on either side. Kind of probably feels like things just fell into place given those parameters. I mean, I guess this trade is fine for Kevin Durant. You're never going to get equal value or reasonable value or anywhere near it for a player of his caliber when you trade them. You're just not. It's not possible. Okay. As much as I hate Kevin Durant, he is a superstar. You're not going to get that talent, or you're not going to get anywhere near that talent in a trade. But I just don't get it. Like, their team is just a bunch of fucking role-playing 3-and-D wings. And I guess, like, there's maybe some value in deciding to corner that market and see if that can net you, like, something in trade down the line that maybe increases the value because you got all these guys that people around the league want. I don't know. But the trade is honestly irrelevant. Like, this is just such an absolute failure from the Nets. And I'm so thrilled about it because I've been fucking saying this shit since they did it. I said I would not sign KD. I said I would not sign Kyrie. I said the Harden trade was stupid because it was all in for no fucking reason. And like, you can tell me, oh, well, this is bad luck. That was bad luck. That's why you have to leave yourself flexibility. They didn't leave themselves flexibility, which left them at the whims of a extremely eccentric personality like Kyrie, to say the least. Um, and that's what happened. Like, this is why I thought they should have just pulled the plug last summer, because if they never had an intention of extending Kyrie, which obviously seems to be the case, they should have expected that like his reaction could be
Right. What
this.
else? What else was this? How else was this gonna
Yeah.
end?
And what I don't understand about this at all, and this is where I think like anybody just praising Sean Marks for him pivoting. Oh, I'm so amazed! Like they got all this draft capital. Oh, like if they had this fucking agreement with KD over the summer, where hey, if shit goes bad, we'll trade you. Why would they not take the Lakers deal from the fucking Lakers for Kyrie? That was 2 unprotected firsts and like a pick swap or something. I don't understand. How is that not better than getting the Dallas pick, a Dallas unprotected pick in 2 seconds, and Dinwiddie and DFS? Like, what are Dinwiddie and DFS doing for you now? Okay, like, yeah, if you're, I understand you can't tank. I'm not sure your team is that much worse if you don't have DFS and Dinwiddie, and you still make this trade with, if you make that Lakers trade and then you make this Phoenix trade, because I think McCall Bridges, Cam Johnson, those are good players. And you'll see what Cam Thomas has. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't understand it. I think it's really fucking stupid, and I just they got what they deserved, because when you make a deal with the devil, that's what can happen. And Kyrie Irving is a phenomenal, talented, skilled basketball player, one of the most skilled basketball players ever. As Prez will argue, and maybe rightfully so, the best handles ever. But all of that doesn't make you somebody that is worth giving control of the franchise over to, and that's what they did. And this is what you get. I'm sorry. Like, I don't feel fucking sympathy for them. I don't feel sympathy for Sean Marks. I don't feel sympathy. I definitely will never feel sympathy for Josiah. I don't have any. I have absolutely no sympathy for Kevin Durant. I have none. None. Not a fucking shred of sympathy for him. He was literally in the best basketball situation possible. He wanted to prove that he can go do his own thing and make Brooklyn cool and play ball with his buddy, and it was all going to be great. I don't feel sympathy for him. I'm sorry. He pissed away 3.5 years of his career. That's his fucking fault. It is what it is. Now he gets to go play on another team with another set of stars. Devin Booker, an absolute star. Chris Paul, obviously not the player he once was, but is still pretty good. Like, no guy has garnered so much sympathy through his career while exclusively playing with star after star after star after star after star. This isn't to say Kevin Durant himself isn't a star. He absolutely is, but I don't feel any sympathy for him. And the final thing is, again, you couldn't give up, what is it, Utah instead of TJ Warren? Like, really? Like, that bit is a little bit weird to me. Maybe they're just doing him as fucking solid too, because apparently that's how you should make trades in the NBA. This trade sucks for Brooklyn in the sense of, like, did they get value? Sure, but it sucks in the sense of you had they were supposed to win championships. That's it. End of the day, you're supposed to win championships. You sign KD, you sign Kyrie, you trade for James Harden. You're supposed to win championships, and you won one fucking playoff series in 3.5 years. They played 13 games, I think, together, all three of them, which is fucking bananas. I believe KD and Kyrie played 74 games together in 3.5 years. This is the biggest failure in NBA history, as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing that comes close to this. I don't think there's anything that comes close to this in any sport I've watched. Like, it's not comparable, because in a sport like basketball, if you get 3 or 2 of the top, what is it at worst? What is it, like 6, 7 players?
Right.
And another guy who's probably top 15 ish. That sounds about right. Something like that around there, 15, 20. You're supposed to win championships. You got them all in their primes. Sure, back end of their primes, but primes, and you won nothing. You won one playoff game. You got embarrassed in a playoff series last year by the Celtics. Like, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassment. Anybody saying anything other than that about Sean Marks and Brooklyn and what they have going on is a joke. It's a joke. No, they failed miserably. They failed more than any team could possibly fucking fail. And I feel no sympathy for them because I had to deal for how many times do we have to say, oh, the Knicks, they're dead. The Knicks didn't get them. Nobody will sign with the Knicks. The Knicks are down. Dolan this, Dolan that. And what happened? What happened? I'd rather be the Knicks today than I am the Nets. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's annoying, and it's gonna be the reaction to this. Like, there's gonna be a lot of jokes, and then it's just gonna be what always happens with Brooklyn, which is nobody really cares about Brooklyn alone in a vacuum. They cared about Brooklyn in relation to the Knicks, in relation to Harden's past teams, in relation to the Warriors, in relation to other possible contenders. They have no they have no personality of their own, and we've talked about this. KD is weirdly emblematic of it in himself. I mean, Harden and Kyrie have very strong personalities on the court, for better and for worse. KD just he's an incredible hooper, and he can fit anywhere, and he just kind of exists in his own stratospheric bubble doing his
I
own
mean,
thing. And
he's kind of like just talking pure aesthetics as a scorer. The way he can get buckets without dominating the ball, it's like it is a little bit like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant esque. And I know people will be
yeah,
like, "What are you talking about? They dominate the ball." But like, I'm telling you, man, go watch some of these like Jordan and Kobe highlights where they like you'll see games where they get like 6, 7 jumpers just because coming off a screen or whatever the fuck it is.
yeah, and play in the post, play in the screen, play off
Yeah.
movement, play in the mid post. Like, they can do all that shit, and his versatility is why he can be KD could be in all these situations and still be incredible. Like, the dude can't hardly drive no more, and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna shoot 60% from mid range. That's like a made up fucking number, basically. Like, for how many he takes, it's incredible. But like, again, the winds of time are gonna blow, and once all the
Not
jokes,
the winds of winter.
we know the winds of winter are not going to blow. Unfortunately. um so, and then we're just going to move on. The jokes are going to be the jokes, and then it's not going to be like, this isn't going to be like, don't let blah 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 let you forget that the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead. Like, this is not, these jokes are not going to have that staying power, because that staying power for that Warriors blown lead, for example, is funny because of their greatness and their distinctness
Mm.
and their era definingness. This KD team was just like, what? Like, they didn't really, like you said, they played 13 or 16 games together, and they were a they were their biggest impact was basically internet shit posting. Like, they generated shit posting at the beginning, at the end, and during the inflection points of their tenure when various players left. And that's it. In that sense, they're kind of a weirdly emblematic team for like the age we're in of social media, where like most of the shit on here is stupid or doesn't matter anyway, or is a waste of time. So like, cool dudes, mission accomplished. Like, I joked about like, oh, I can't wait to see the 30 for 30. But actually, I can wait, because that 30 for 30 would be boring as fuck. It would not be a good 30 for 30. It would just be like the worst vibes. There would be like a couple of exciting points if they really got into like what on earth Kyrie was thinking at various points in his life. But aside from that, it's just going to
Not
be
sure you want
James
to
Harden.
explore that one.
Yeah, I don't know, that you might want to just leave that untouched. And then James Harden is just going to be like, oh, I got to get out of here.
It's
And
just
then
it's
like,
just clips of him at scores, getting lap dances, realizing that he needs to leave Brooklyn.
yeah, exactly. And then it's gonna pan to like old James Harden, and he's gonna be like, "I'm glad I got out of there. I love it in Philly with Joel Embiid. He's my son's godfather, or whatever. They're probably like best friends now or some shit."
We made
And
it to an
then,
Eastern Conference Finals once.
yeah, if it wasn't for Kawhi Leonard, damn it, like, or whatever. But and then KD, I've talked about him on prior pods, but he's his own enigma, and I hope he has success on Phoenix.
I don't.
he I know you don't, because I respect it. I respect it, but like even though he's this weird like vibeless guy, I do respect his talent. And CP3 is annoying, but like I just like the way they hoop book KD and CP3 are
I
just like
like Book a lot. Like Book's like aesthetically one of my favorite hoopers.
yeah. The three of those guys are faves of mine on the court aesthetically. So like, and I'm always here for like as long as the Knicks aren't contending. Like I don't want one of these fucking teams that already got chips like that to win. Like I know it was cool that the Warriors came back and still managed to pull out another chip, but fuck that shit. Y'all already got enough. Relax, bro.
Yeah,
Like I'm not trying to see no Warriors chip. Giannis is always cool just because Giannis has like he's the opposite. He's like immaculate vibes all the time. Um.
I would rather the Warriors win another chip though than they get Wemby.
Oh well, if you want to just compare the worst timelines, then sure. Yes, I agree 100%. You're like this is like well, like it's interesting, Julian. Or Prize, you're talking about like getting shot in the foot, but I prefer that to certain death. Like wow, yes, I concur. I concur, good sir.
um,
Why would you even say that on the pod? Oh my god,
no,
man.
because I
Let's
mean
stop. Let's just no. Let's just
I
talk
know
about some other.
I know they
I
got
don't.
GP2, but I
Oh.
don't know if he's gonna save him.
That was as far like
Can we
dipping back
okay,
to
let's
trade stuff. Can
yeah
we
let's
talk
talk
about like all the weird like second round pick stuff? Like this is
no
just
we
objectively
will,
hilarious.
but I want to talk specifically about this because
OG
this trade.
Ananobi is going to be traded in the summer for 34 second round picks.
All right, I don't even know if you know this trade, but this is the trade. Hawks got Sadiq Bey from Detroit. Detroit gets James Wiseman from Golden State. Golden State gets Gary Payne the second and 5 second-round picks. And Portland also got Kevin Knox and then 5 second-round picks. I'm not sure if these second-round picks got. I guess they did. I guess they both got 5 second-round picks. So all right, good for them.
That's probably a new record for like most second round picks in a deal.
Yeah, that's 10 in the deal. I'm not sure where. I guess Detroit and Atlanta just went crazy with second round picks or something.
Well, hey, I'll tell real quick before we get into the particulars of why that trade is like weird and fascinating. Like we've been talking about, like, okay, what are valuations like post Gobert, post Donovan Mitchell, and everybody like all of these role players who are rotation players, they can't all be worth a first. If firsts are the currency of stars.
Oh, so sorry. Just want to clear this up. They got the 5 second-round picks from Atlanta, and then they sent that with Knox to Portland
I see.
for a GP2.
So it's the same 5.
Yeah,
It's not 10 second round.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, that seems really crazy. But yeah. So anyway,
that makes a lot more sense. What was I saying?
this is my theory. I think 4 to 5 second-round picks is equivalent to a protected first-round pick.
Yes, that's exactly where I was getting. Like it's not, it's equal value, but you can't optically right now say I'm giving a first for this guy, because then all these fuckers are worth firsts, and collectively like that can't happen, particularly because a disproportionate number of firsts are held in the hands of a few teams, and there's no way that these teams, right, the Knicks, the Thunder, the Pelicans, the Rockets, they don't need these role players, so they're not going to give you first for that. So you start looking for alternative, it's almost like alternative currency, like equal value but not a first, because if first round picks were distributed more evenly around the league, more of these guys would be worth a first, but they're not. So instead, the next best thing is these weird deals. I think the first one I remember like this, this was before the Gobert trade, but it was Kevin Porter Jr. on draft day was picked 30th and traded for 4 second round picks. That's the first time I can remember recently where
I don't think
we
that
had one
Kevin
of
Porter
those.
Jr. or was it Dylan Windler? I knew it was one of those picks.
It was KPJ, because I remember being like 4 second round picks. Why can't the Knicks do it?
Yeah, and then we saw why.
Narrator. The Knicks made a great decision.
29 teams, or I guess 28 teams made the right decision.
Yeah.
It's if yeah, I mean, I think that that's just really what it is. It's just you don't have a first round pick, so you don't want to give up optics, whatever. But like that is effectively what I got out of today is that 4 to 5 second round picks is equivalent to some type of protected first, which also makes more sense of like our trade, where our trade was a lotto protected first or 4 second round picks if it doesn't convey this year, right? So that makes sense now because and effectively, like you see this with a lot of these deals. So San Antonio took on Devonte Graham, who has a longer contract than Josh Richardson. They sent Josh Richardson to the Pelicans. They take Devonte Graham, and they got 4 second round picks. Right? That's effectively you're getting a protected first for the salary dump. Um, but just like as a basketball thing, I don't know how I feel about Sadiq Bey in Atlanta. I know that they're thin on the wing. I was listening to a friend of the pod, Mark Schindler, along with Sam Vicini a little bit before we got on. And Mark was expressing some concerns about what Sadiq Bey wants as his role versus what is available to him as his role in Atlanta. And I was
Real quick
kind of
tangent, real quick tangent, real quick
yep,
tangent. This is why in player development, it's a lot more nuanced than like they can't play at all. That's okay. Give them all the freedom in the world. That's also okay. Like, no, the degree in the middle matters because Sadiq Bey now thinks that he's fucking, some like real 25 usage wing when it's like, bro, you're on a tanking team. You ain't got it like that. Take that dye out your hair and fucking relax.
yeah. It's just that Joker thing he did was just whatever, man. Um, but like he was talking about Sadiq Bey, and I was just laughing at it because the way I was thinking about it was like they clearly did the right thing trading Cam Reddish for a protected first, right? To us. So good job, Hawks. But I'm like, you're like what you're describing, like what he was describing as Sadiq Bey. I was like, this sounds exactly like Cam Reddish. Like this sounds exactly like Cam Reddish.
Like the
Oh,
player or the situation, you mean?
the player in the way he was describing, like he
Mm.
doesn't like, you know, he's gone away from being like the what made him kind of intriguing as a rookie was he was fully just a 3 and D guy. And so he's, taking spot up threes, focusing
The
on
appeal of
defense.
him as a prospect was the same.
Right.
He was a 3 and D guy who actually had a sneaky sprinkle of like pick and
Attacking
roll
closeout.
passing
Yeah.
and attacking closeouts. Yeah,
Right. And like instead of it becoming a sprinkling, it's just been like he's trying to do more. I was reading in the Athletic today that people were like annoyed by his kind of style of play at times in the organization. And I'm like, so did you just trade for Cam Reddish? Like, is that what happened here? Which so that part was funny to me, but I do get the gamble on their end. Like, I do think they're thin. They could take a shot on Sadiq Bey,
sure,
whatever. I don't think it's
sure.
terrible. This Wiseman thing, I gotta say,
It's so
getting
fucking annoying.
well, okay. There's so much about this that I hate. I want to get into one thing real quick. This doesn't really need to be an extended conversation. Gary Payton the second, getting objectively taking Wiseman too, and then having to flip him before the end of his third season to get back Gary Payton the second is a horrible like use
If
of
the
that
Knicks
asset.
had a series of moves like that, we would be fucking ridiculed. And obviously, the Warriors have done enough that, like, if any team should get a pass, it's the Warriors. Cool, but like, it's still fucking annoying. I'm like, yo, you can have fuck ups of this magnitude, and you're fine because you still have staff. Like, how
Yeah,
nice it must be.
yeah, it must be nice.
And Clay,
Uh,
Clay Thompson is like fucking discovering the fountain of youth
oh
for
God, I know.
2023. It's
And
really annoying to me. Tangent to this tangent. It's really annoying to me that like if you look up his stats since he like played the Knicks that one time, it's
it's been
probably
great.
just it's been great. And I'm like, oh, like that game, this stretch of like renaissance. Of course, it began versus the Knicks.
Yeah. And so yeah, I know. And then they traded Gary Payton. So they get Gary Payton second back, who's awesome. He's going to be great for them. We know this because he was great for them. So it's hilarious that that's how they got Gary Payton the second back. But once you accept that Wiseman was a total bust, I think that is fine. You just got to do it. Um,
Yeah, good for them for like honestly,
and
like we clowned them for taking a horrible pick, an actual bust at number two, which we should. But good for them for finally just being like, all right, we taking the L. We
yeah,
Steph ain't getting any younger. Like, let's get with it.
yeah. And then I'm not sure why the Blazers did this. They got Kevin Knox and they get 5 second round picks. So my assumption is that like They either think that they have enough that they don't really need Gary Payne II, or they just don't care if they actually make the playoffs or not, which is possible because they would retain their first round pick if they don't make the playoffs. So maybe that's what it is. The
You give
final
up
piece,
Hart and you give up GP2. That's like, I mean, obviously it's not Dame. It's not your main offense, Dame, Simons, Grant, but like that's real depth, man. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
So
But
weird.
I just absolutely hate this for Detroit. I don't think Weaver has any idea what he's doing. That's why I don't think he has a fucking clue what he's doing. You just drafted Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren and James Wiseman can never play together. You can try it and you can pretend that like James, oh well, he can shoot the ball and
They
no.
were trying dumb double big stuff, but at least Stu could shoot.
Well, it's like at
And
least
he's undersized.
it's also like it just makes more sense at least. This
And I don't
doesn't
even
even.
like that for the
No,
record. I
I
don't
don't
like
like it
Stu at the
either.
four.
I don't like it either. But this is terrible. I think this is awful. I don't understand it. I would have rather just traded Bay and gotten the 5 second round picks straight up. I don't know what Wiseman does for you. There was a report that came out before they finalized the deal that Troy Weaver had Wiseman number one on his board before that draft, and like, why do you even want? Do you want that out there so that everybody just knows you're a fucking idiot? Like, I don't get that. I just don't get this deal. So you did this. They fucking signed Bagley last summer to that 3 year, $37 million deal. You know, they didn't trade
I
Nerlens.
forgot about that.
Nerlens still chilling over there. I'm not saying that Nerlens going to play, but he's still there. I just and they didn't trade Bogdanovich. They didn't trade Burks. Like, I get you want some vets around. I'm cool with that. You had to trade one of those guys. You should have definitely traded one of those guys. This other guy, they still got Curtis or Corey Joseph is still hanging out. Like, that team is a fucking disaster. I don't think they have any idea. I think Weaver sucks. I don't actually hate the talent they've amassed. I think it's like okay, and I think they would do better if probably somebody with a clue was in charge of the front office. But the Wiseman thing is insane. They already said he's going to start. Apparently, like
What?
why? Why is he going to start? You're going to put you're going to so you're either benching Dern or you're going to play him and Dern together, which is like pathetic. And then the most hilarious part of this is if they did get lucky in the draft and get the number one pick and got Wemby, they would be sitting there with Wiseman, Duren, Wemby. Like, it's just everything about this trade is so stupid for them. I don't get why they did it. I don't know what I think Troy Weaver is awful.
I think I'm
He,
officially adding them to the bad vibes for Wemby list. Like before, for me personally, they weren't on the like, this is stupid if this team gets Wemby. But and they're not like on the top tier of that, like other teams that I truly hate. But they're not in the like they're not no longer in the good vibes. Like, good for Wemby, good for the NBA. I'm okay with this, relatively speaking. They're no longer in that category.
yeah, it's bad. It's bad. We're gonna keep talking about this stuff, but before we continue, NBA fans, it's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, for a limited time, all new and existing customers can get a no sweat same game parlay every day. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, opt in, and place a same game parlay on any NBA game. And if it doesn't hit, you'll get a bonus bet back. Download the app now and sign up with code TBPN. New customers can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with code TBPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Yeah, that I don't know. That trade is just so fucking bananas to me. I hate it. For Detroit a lot, and specifically for Duren, it seems like. And I don't really like it for anybody really, other than the Warriors. But even with the Warriors, it's like, yeah, you could have just had LaMelo. Seems a lot better than doing
Oh
this.
my god, dude! Any of these fucking there's a lot of talent there, but Lamelo most of all, man. Like
Yeah,
God, like I just you know how I get about this stuff. It's like teams that like people complain about RJ Barrett. I complain about RJ Barrett, but like we don't have the luxury of fucking whiffing complete. We did whiff completely on lottery picks before. Like we've done it several times, arguably. But Wiseman was the number 2 pick. That like this is what gets me so mad about like teams like the Warriors and Philly who had several top 3 picks that they whiffed on or whatever, and it's just like even fucking Phoenix like with Bender and all that shit. Like the luxury to just have enough good fortune in cumulative like amass for your team that you could fucking waste the most precious type of good luck outside of a supermax Hall of Famer deciding he wants to play in your city. That's the only thing, the only stroke of luck better than, or I guess like getting a Hall of Famer later in the draft is also up there, like Steph or Giannis or something like that. But those 3 are probably like the most NBA, not even franchise, NBA changing level gifts you can get that are through nothing your team did, that are just through shit luck. And they were just like, da, da, da. Oh well, we took Wiseman. He didn't work out, even though everybody said he didn't work out. We thought he would work out, and guess what? He didn't work out. We'll trade him for Gary Payton again. Like, get the fuck out of here! Like, that gets me so mad. Like, fuck you. This is why I don't want the Warriors to win, bro.
Yeah. I just I
I
don't
love Steph. I'm just saying.
I saw something the other day. I think I saw somebody tweet out a comparison of like Poole's numbers at age, what is he, 23 or whatever the fuck he is, to Donovan Mitchell at that age. And I was just like, no, no, like, no, not doing this. Like, you don't deserve to win anymore. I just get the fuck out of here with that. Like, that made me so angry because I'm not even like a fucking huge Mitchell fan. But I was just like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, no, we're not comparing Jordan fucking Poole to Donovan Mitchell. Like, no shot. They're not even playing the same sport. Get the fuck out of my face.